Pokemon Legends ZA is coming out next year, so in preparation, I've replayed through the 6th generation of Pokemon and Pokemon X and Y. And during my time in the Kalos region, I noticed a lot of problems with gym leaders that reside here. And to me, that's mainly because a lot of gym leaders teams are improved in 3rd version games like Emerald and Platinum, while this generation never got that treatment. So today, I'll be improving these teams in the same vein of the 3rd version and a slight jump in difficulty, because man, have you seen Wulfric's team? 3 Pokemon and no Mega in the final gym of the league. These guys need all of the help they can get. Oh, and just like my other Fixing Gym Leaders series, I'm keeping a Nuzlocke experience in mind here, but definitely making a regular playthrough accessible as well. So with that out of the way, let's dive in. First up, after the player grabs their starter and explores Viridian Forest 2 Electric Boogaloo, they'll arrive in Santaloon City. And already, you'll notice that the player has many more options for encounters than in any other Pokemon game, as this game has a very large Pokédex to take from. And seeing as Viola is the Bug-type master, let's see what counters the player can possibly get up to that point. Firstly, on Route 2, you can either get a Fletchling or Pidgey, which could honestly at least two-shot both of Viola's mons. And with Surskit being part water, it's important to note that Fletchling won't have evolved by the level cap of 12 to get that fire typing. In Viridian Forest 2 Electric Boogaloo, you can get Pansear and Pikachu, which are great counters for this team as well, with Vivillon being part flying. And on Route 3, there's even a 5% chance of getting a Dunsparce who gets rollout by only level 4. I wouldn't say we need to design the fight around this encounter, but it is important to note. And finally, the player can also access Route 22 to the right of the city for more mons like Litleo and Farfetch'd. So I'd say based on the amount of counters the player can get by this point, there's a lot of room for improvement for Viola's current team. And in fact, I think it'd be perfectly fine to give Viola a 3rd Pokemon that isn't too strong just to up the ante, especially because you'll definitely have more than 3 Pokemon of your own by this point. So Viola will start out by sending out Surskit at level 10 with Swift Swim and the moves Bubble, Rain Dance, Quick Attack, and Infestation. Something I never understood is that Game Freak saw the Swift Swim ability on this little guy and said, nah, don't give him a move that would activate his ability, just throw down a water sport instead, whose effect is also included in Rain Dance anyways and powering down fire type moves. And we also just threw on the TM of the gym and Infestation to give him some stab. Another weird omission on Game Freak's part. And in terms of adding a new Pokemon, I'd like to keep the options limited to the routes that the player can access and maybe a route ahead if the options are scarce. And here, Viola could be given either Beedrill or Butterfree, but I think that would take away from Vivillon too much. And unless she starts to run a U-turn strats, I don't think the Kakuna and Metapod that Bugsy runs work well here either. But a route or two ahead on Route 6 lives a little critter in Nincada, a Pokemon that I think is left behind in many games. And with not much to write home about in the stats department, I think it's a decent addition to the team that wouldn't break the difficulty. So next out, Viola will send out a Nincada at level 10 with Compound Eyes and the moves Fury Swipes to take advantage of Compound Eyes, Sand Attack, Leech Life, and Mud Slap for some great help with fire and electric type counters. With this guy not having a huge attacking prowess, I think bringing down Mud Slap from level 17 is a perfectly warranted change to help out the team here. Actually, Creations, Nincada doesn't get Mud Slap until level 31 in X and Y. You're looking at Oris. Oh my gosh, Youngster Joey, wow, you're right. Wait, 31 is insane. Game Freak, did you just assume that nobody would use Nincada in X and Y? Well, I mean, did you? Huh, I guess not. Okay, I guess I'll go now. Yeah, that makes sense. And finally is Viola's ace, Vivillon at level 12 with Compound Eyes instead of Shield Dust, with the moves Struggle Bug, Gust, Poison Powder, and Infestation. I added Struggle Bug for a stronger bug type move outside of Infestation, and for the chance of lowering potential special attacking fire types with Ember. And with the addition of Compound Eyes, that makes the Poison Powders hit at an almost perfect accuracy. So that's Viola's new and improved team. I feel like we did a lot to bring this team up to snuff with the likes of other first gym leaders without going too overboard here. And just like my other Fixing Gym videos, I'll be adding an item to each gym fight to slightly increase the difficulty. So for Viola, I think we can keep things simple and just give Vivillon an Oranberry to give it that extra bit of health. Next up, we'll be taking a look at Grant, the rock type gym leader. And oh my goodness, there is so much region to cover in between these gyms. There are roughly 8 routes and caves place in 3 cities. When I played through these games for the first time, I thought that this was going to be the length between every gym fight, and it got me so excited. But anyways, with so many new possible encounters, there are just too many counters to Grant's team here to list off one by one. But some notable ones are definitely Lucario, Floette, Honedge, and Mienfoo. And with so many great counters available, I think Grant deserves a bit of a boost here. And taking a look at his usual team, it's the dynamic duo of the new fossil Pokemon of Kalos, which is great in concept and in the sense of their secondary typings, giving them a few benefits along the way. But there does seem to be something missing here. And with Viola being given a third Pokemon, I think a third for Grant should be granted as well. So let's get into the changes. First up, we got the new addition, and there's a decent amount of options we could go with here. At first, after thinking about how each gym leader has a hobby that they do in their free time, and with Grant's being climbing, giving him a Pokemon that could represent that sport well would fit nicely here. And what Pokemon could do better at climbing than one made of a couple of hands in Binnacle? But unfortunately, this guy's evolution is already Seabold's Ace in the Elite Four, and I think it fits in pretty well there. So then I looked at the anime and how Grant runs with an Onix, and I just thought that it'd be so lame to add. With the other 2 Pokemon being fossils, I thought that giving Grant something within the same vein would fit perfectly, leading to what is a Pokemon that in my eyes deserves so much more attention, and that is Relicanth. And with it being caught in Grant's hometown, albeit with the Super Rod, I think it's a great fit. So Grant will start with a Relicanth at level 23 with Rockhead and the moves Rock Tomb to lower speed, Yawn, Takedown for the Rockhead advantage, and Sandstorm for the added bulk. And while this guy is known for using its Rockhead ability for Head Smash, I think with a BST that is more than 100 above Tyron and Damara, it'd be a bit too much for how early on in the game we are. Plus, I'd rather have this guy focus on setting up Yawn and Sandstorm before still being able to utilize that takedown, as it's still nothing to scoff at. Next up will be Grant's Amara, and honestly, taking a look at the level up learn set, there is not much else to add to this guy, so I'm keeping it the same. I love the addition of Thunder Wave to try and slow down the opponent before the Tyrant comes out. And speaking of which, here he comes at level 25 with Strongjaw and the moves Rock Tomb again, Bite, Stomp, and Thunderfang as a relearned move that gets the Strongjaw bonus and has some great coverage. Not to mention the base version only gives him 3 moves. Like, what's the deal with that? Anyways, that's Grant for you. I feel like we did a good job of giving him that little extra boost that he needs. Oh, and for the item, I'm thinking we slap a Lumberry on the Tyrant to prevent the player from cheesing the fight too much with status conditions. Next up to bat, we have a gym leader that helps introduce the player to Mega Evolution, Korrina the fighting type leader. But you don't get access to Mega Evolution until after you obtain her badge, so that'll be good to keep in mind. And the standout counters that the player has access to at this point are Honedge, Sigilyph, and Gardevoir, who is able to evolve just before her level cap. And taking a look at her current team, you might notice that she cannot touch Honedge, or any other ghost type for that matter. And with each Pokemon having only 3 moves, it's a really frustrating oversight by Game Freak, since there's obviously space for more. And usually Gym Leader's aces are only around 2 levels above the other Mons on the team, but for some odd reason, the Machoke is 4 levels below the Hawlucha here, leading to the player possibly having a team that outclasses the first 2 Pokemon a lot more easily. So I think Korrina deserves a good bit of work here to make her more formidable. So starting out the fight, Korrina will send out her Mienfoo, now at level 30, and this time with Regenerator and the moves Power Up Punch, Fake Out, Baton Pass via breeding, and Rock Tomb for speed control. I really like the Mienfoo pick, even though it's got a pretty low BST at this point in the game, as it's a lesser used Pokemon that didn't get too much recognition in Gen 5 outside of its Elite 4 rep. And with the addition of Baton Pass, this fighter intends to get guaranteed damage off with Fake Out and getting an attack boost or 2 before Baton Passing out into Machoke or Hawlucha to start sweeping, while it can heal upon switching back in with its ability. Next out is Machoke, who is now at level 30, and at this time with no guard, and the moves Submission, Rock Tomb, Knockoff, and Bullet Punch, via breeding with Hitmonchan. With Submission and Rock Tomb being able to take advantage of the the No Guard ability, and Knock Off and Bullet Punch, allowing for some great coverage against those Psychic or Fairy types out there. I chose to go the No Guard route because Guts Flame Orb seems to be a little too much for this early on in the game, and I do feel like the Machop line has been overused on other teams in other regions, and I thought about replacing him with something with a similar BST, but there really isn't anything else that'll fit that middle ground up until this point in the region, so he stays with an updated moveset. Finally, Korrina will send out her ace, Hawlucha, at level 32 with Unburden and the moves Flying Press, Roost to ensure healing, Power Up Punch, and Fling. The key here is in that last move, as it does different things depending on the item equipped, and once used, the item will be unequipped from Hawlucha, proccing its Unburdened ability in the process. So that's Korrina's new and improved team. With added moves to attempt to take on any common counters, her Pokemon will surely be more difficult to take on at this point. And as far as the item goes, I think the best fit in terms of balance would be giving Hawlucha a Rocky Helmet, making Fling a 60 power move, and if Hawlucha does get outsped on that first turn before the Unburdened speed boost comes into play, that Rocky Helmet will do some chip damage to the threat. Up next is one of, if not the most underwhelming gym leaders in all of Pokemon, and that is Ramos, the grass type leader. And here, I want to keep in mind that the player now has access to Mega Evolution, albeit not too many stones have become available yet. So I think for Ramos, a Mega would be a little too much here. And for counters to grass Pokemon, the best the player has access to at this point is Crobat, Heracross, and the early game bird in Fletchinder, who just barely misses out on evolving before this level cap, which I really like. I'll give points to Game Freak on that one. And looking at his original team, it's pretty obvious that this guy's got some work to do in the challenging opponent department. I mean, multiple people had to check and hand off these mons with only 3 moves before implementing them, right? Anyways, with all of that, a Ramos buff is definitely warranted. So starting out, Ramos will still send out his lead Jumpluff at level 32 with Leaf Guard and the moves U-Turn, Acrobatics, Leech Seed, and Poison Powder. I really like this guy as the lead, as he's an underrated mon that doesn't see a lot of use, but can have a niche use case, and I think I've done a pretty good job demonstrating it in this set, as it aims to set up Leech Seed and Poison Powder before switching out of there. Next out, Ramos will send out an additional member here in Ludicolo at level 32 with Own Tempo and the moves Fake Out, Nature Power, Bubble Beam, and Mega Drain. This guy is meant to act as a potential sweep ender with Fake Out and a decently powerful water type move for this level. I decided that going for the Rain Dance route here would be a bit too much with all the other strats I've got going on the following mons, but don't discount the amount of damage that this guy can dish out given the right circumstances. Next out, instead of a poor Weepin' Bell, Ramos will send out a Roserade at level 32 with Poison Point and the moves Grassy Terrain, Nature Power, Grass Knot as the Gym TM, and Venoshock. But here, I've replaced the Weepin' Bell with a Roserade, and while some might see that as a boring replacement, I see it as a great opportunity to showcase a mechanic that was introduced in this generation, Terrain. Yeah, I bet you thought that was Gen 7, huh? It's actually just a super rare level up move in Gen 6, with only 4 lines getting access to the move here. But here, Grassy Terrain does a number of things to help out the team for 5 turns. Before it got nerfed in Gen 8, it boosted grass type moves by 50% instead of the current 30. And on top of that, both the player and the opponent's Pokemon will regain 1/16 of its maximum HP every turn, hence the Leech Seed intending on counteracting that recovery on Jumpluff. Additionally, the Nature Power that Roserade will bring will also turn into Energy Ball, but funnily enough, in only Generation 6, the move would change in specific gyms, so might as well make use of it. I just find it really cool that they made an addition like this in the one game that focuses on the beauty of nature and life, however flimsy its themes actually are. Oh, and for any opponents who were hit with Poison Powder from Jumpluff, Venoshock will be enacted to put them into the ground. Next up, in order to take advantage of the grassy terrain, Ramos will send out his ace, Go-Goat, at level 34 with its hidden ability Grass Pelt, and the moves Horn Leech, Bulk Up, Roll Out for some decent coverage, and Grass Knot for the Gym TM move. Here, I thought I'd mention that I'm allowing one Pokemon in each gym to obtain a hidden ability if its normal ability isn't giving it anything special. And here, Sap Sipper would just never proc, as I don't expect many trainers to be hitting it with a grass type move anytime soon. Instead, if grassy terrain is set up while Go-Goat is out, Grass Pelt will be increasing its defense by 50%, making this guy a wall to get past. Oh, and while I liked the original Go-Goat's inclusion of Bulldoze, I decided to remove it here due to the power of it, Earthquake, and Magnitude all being halved while the terrain is up. So hopefully Rollout will do. And there you have it, Ramos's new and improved grassy terrain abusing team. With the Grass Pelt boosted Go-Goat alongside the status afflicting leads, the player will have plenty of challenge to get through in this fight. And for the item, I was hoping that the terrain extender was also introduced here in Gen 6, but that was an inclusion thanks to Gen 7. So instead, I'm gonna give the Go-Goat a citrus berry to make it stick around for even longer, making it a huge threat to the player. Next up, we'll be returning to the big Lumio City to take on the electric type and apparently trivia master, Clemont. And if you didn't notice on your way over from the previous city, there was a conveniently placed desert themed route right before reaching the city, which gives you access to Gabite, Vibrava, and Dugtrio, which are all great encounters for that tricky electric typing. By this point, the player would also have some great Pokemon in Krokorok and the Nidos to help out. And now that the level cap has gone above the traditional final evolution for starter Pokemon, I think players using Mega Evolutions are going to be a bit more common here. But I think for the balance I'm trying to strike, I'm not going to be giving a Mega Stone to a Pokemon on this team, but I will be giving a second item in an effort to boost the team slightly more. And speaking of which, looking at Clemont's current team, I'm left feeling quite quizzical. Yet again, Game Freak has left a fourth move slot open on each of his team members. And based on the amount of great counters the player has up to this point, I definitely think a fourth Mon is necessary here too. So let's get into it. Instead of Elisa's usual opener in Emolga, Clemont will open with the Pika clone of Gen 6, Dedenne, at level 35 with Cheek Pouch in the moves Thunderbolt, Charm, Nuzzle, and Play Rough. I know Play Rough isn't a great option for this boy, especially since he's a special attacker, but he doesn't actually get a special attacking fairy type move. So I think having Stab Fairy here is pretty important just to knock any Gabite users off guard. But overall, this guy is purely meant to lower the player's attack and speed stats with Charm and Nuzzle, leading to Clemont's second Mon, who instead of Magneton will send out Rotom at level 35 with Levitate and the moves Thunder, Confuse Ray, Ominous Wind, and Rain Dance. This guy is meant to throw the player off guard with its ground immunity, and with plenty of setup options in Rain Dance Thunder and Ominous Wind Omni boosts, it's almost guaranteed that that will happen. Plus, with an immunity to both Clemont's Ace's weaknesses, it'll surely make team building slightly tougher than normal for this fight. Oh, and not to mention, Clemont is cited to be the inventor of the Rotom decks, so I think this addition couldn't be more than perfect here. This opens the stage for Clemont's new and improved Heliolisk at level 37 with Dry Skin and the moves Parabolic Charge, Round, Grass Knot, and Mud Slap. Now, if the player takes out Rotom too fast, the Heliolisk will benefit from the 1/8 health per turn healing that Dry Skin offers in the rain. And I know that Parabolic Charge is technically a downgrade from Thunderbolt, but I think with the healing from that move on top of the Dry Skin healing, it'll be tough to get this guy out of the battle. And with Heliolisk having a great speed stat already, I'm thinking Quick Attack can be replaced with a stronger special attacking normal move that isn't Razor Wind. We are not fans of an 80 base power 2-turn move over here on this channel at all. And for the fourth and final Pokemon on Clemont's team, Manectric will join in on the fun at level 35 with Static in the moves Thunderbolt, Flamethrower, Snarl as a great way to debuff any special attacking threats, and Thunder Wave. Now, I know what you're about to say, youngster Joey, but wait, oh creations, Manectric has a Mega Evolution. Oh dear Joey. I'm well aware, there aren't many other options for added team members that make much sense for Clemont, and I thought it'd be nice to leave the option open to anyone who thought adding a Mega Stone wouldn't be too difficult by this point. Oh, okay. But wait a minute. This isn't... Wait, youngster Joey, what happened to your top percentage Rattata? You're not one of the most iconic NPC trainers in Pokemon franchise history from Pokemon Heart Gold Soul Silver. You're an imposter from Black and White. Get your Patrats out of here. But anyways, that's Clemont for you. With Mega starting to come out of the woodworks a little bit more, I think a continuation of the difficulty introduced in Ramos's grassy terrain team was totally warranted with the Rotom tossing things up here. And in terms of the items, I think we'll be giving Dedenne a citrus berry to take advantage of its cheek pouch ability, and a big root to the Heliolisk to boost the amount of health that's recovered from Parabolic Charge, pairing nicely with that dry skin healing. Now with 5 badges in hand, the player will be able to reach Laviere City, the home of the first fairy type gym leader, Valerie. Yeah, this is a real character in Pokemon. Did you forget about her? Can't blame you. And while she does look creepy, that does not mean that she poses an actual threat. But first, let's think of the potential crazy encounters the player could have by this point in the game. The player can find great counters in Tentacruel, the Nidos again, Doublade, and Steelix. And on the route before Laviere City, on Route 14, the player gains access to Victreebel, Drapion, and Gengar. And with fairy types being a new thing here in Gen 6, I think this is a perfect opportunity to introduce a Mega Evolution for the player to fight. And looking at her current team, while I do think the Sylveon and the Mawile are really fun picks, I think a 4th team member here is also necessary to buff her team up a bit more. So starting out the fight, Valerie will, instead of sending out her Mawile, will send out her Mr. Mime at level 39 with Filter and the exact same moveset. It actually baffles me how Valerie didn't send out her screen setting Mime first in her gym fight. Seems like just a really weird move on Game Freak's part. Anyways, I think this guy's original moveset works completely fine as is, offering plenty of support with the screens and huge damage outputs with those stab moves. And with the new ability in Filter, it should be able to stay alive long enough to take advantage of said support. Next out, Valerie will send out Mega Mawile at level 40 with Intimidate and the moves Play Rough and Iron Head for stab, and Iron Defense and Sucker Punch for fun utility options. Even though Mega Mawile still only sits at 480 BST, I think with its high base damaging moves and fun ability, it'll still pose an interesting threat for the player. And finally, rounding things out in the back, next out, instead of the original Mr. Mime, Valerie will send out her ace, Sylveon, at level 42 with Cute Charm and the moves Dazzling Gleam, Quick Attack, Misty Terrain, and Charm. With Swift not offering much in the damage department, I figured replacing it with Misty Terrain here would be a fun option to further show off the newly introduced mechanic here. And I really like the Charm angle with a large portion of fairy type counters being more physically capable. Valerie will send out her Florges at level 40 with Flower Veil and the moves Dazzling Gleam, Magical Leaf, Wish, and Aromatherapy. This flower here will mainly act as support to the greater team, as it's got guaranteed damage and Magical Leaf, alongside possible team healing and Wish and Aromatherapy, while being able to tank hits like nobody's business. And there you have it, Valerie's new and improved team. And with the new first Mega user of the game to be exact, I think Mega Mawile would do a great job of introducing the idea of harder gym battles with Mega Evolutions, with its still relatively low base stat total. And for the item, I think I'll just be keeping it at the Mega Stone for Mawile to balance out the team. Next up is the penultimate gym leader, Olympia the Psychic type Master. And taking a look again at the counters to the type, the player has access to Sneasel, who can't evolve because you can't get the Razor Claw until post-game, Drapion again, Heracross, Malamar, and Crocodile. And taking a look at her current team, she already has some interesting members in Sigilyph and Slowking, which I honestly really like here, as there are 2 mons with significantly less usage on other Psychic type teams. But based on the counters available, I think giving her a similar buff to her team from Valerie's team makes the most sense here, giving her a 4th mon and a Mega as well. So starting out the fight, Olympia will continue to send out her Sigilyph first at level 45 with Magic Guard and the same moveset as before, acting very similar to the Mr. Mime in the previous gym fight. I do find it weird how similar these teams were in terms of movesets, but I think that's okay, as the amount of support that the screens provide is super helpful on these base game fights. Next up is Slowking at level 46 with Own Tempo for blocking confusion, and the moves Psychic, Calm Mind, Surf, and Yawn. While I liked the coverage in Power Gym, I think giving the King a stab water type move in Surf works a bit better here. Next up, Olympia will now send out her new Mon, Medicham, who's got a Medichamite, making it capable of Mega Evolving at level 46 with pure power and the moves Zen Headbutt, High Jump Kick, Fake Out, and Ice Punch. I decided here that Medicham would make for a better Mega user over Alakazam, since the rest of Olympia's team uses special attacking moves, and that Sabrina's ace is Alakazam as well. Finally, Meowstic will join the fight at level 48 with Competitive, and the moves Psychic, Calm Mind, Fake Out, and Shadow Ball. No notes, Game Freak, except for the ability. I feel like Competitive could be a lot more scary here, making it difficult for the player to debuff this cat. And that's Olympia's new team. Unfortunately, with the TM move being Calm Mind and the best damaging move being Psychic for all of these team members pretty much, the movesets are going to be a bit repetitive here. But I think with the addition of Medicham for some insane physical prowess and some fun coverage moves, the team is a lot more difficult to deal with for the player. And again, I think the item only being that Medichamite is perfectly adequate for the difficulty I'm going for here. And finally, the player will reach Snowbell City, home of the final and most underwhelming gym leaders in the region, Wulfric the Ice-type Master. And before we jump in, if you like what you see, consider subscribing, as I put a lot of time and effort into these videos. And if you absolutely hated the changes I've made, tell me how you'd do it better in the comments down below. But anyways, some might say he's underwhelming because in between these gyms, the finale to the Team Flare plot goes down, where in the base game, the player is met with the first battle with an NPC that uses a Mega Evolution in Lysandre. And because of that, when looking at his current team, I think a lot of people felt pretty underwhelmed when they realized Wulfric didn't have an Abomasite equipped. And not to mention the continued use of 3 moves on a Pokemon, all the way in the final gym fight. So here, I'm taking a leap in difficulty, no questions asked. First up, Wulfric will send out a new lead Pokemon in Cloyster at level 56 with Skill Link in the moves Icicle Sphere, Razor Shell, Spikes, and Shell Smash. Here, this guy aims to set up Spikes to break any funny sturdy tactics the player tries to pull, while setting up a Shell Smash or two before hopefully surviving long enough to dish out some scary damage in Icicle Spear's guaranteed 5 hits. Next up, Wulfric will send out an Abomasnow, who is now capable of Mega Evolution at level 57 with Snow Warning and the moves Blizzard, Ice Shard, Energy Ball, and Earthquake. Game Freak honestly didn't do a terrible job in the moveset department here. I just think they needed that extra bit of push to get this team over the edge. And with this guy being a decent mixed attacker, I figured we might as well use both sides to mix it up a bit against the player with Earthquake. I know it's frustrating not seeing the Hail Setter in the front of the team, but I feel like it'd be too jarring to throw a Mega Pokemon in the front of the party here. Next up, Wulfric will then send out his Cryogonal at level 57 with Levitate in the same original moveset. I really like how Cryogonal acts as an opposite to Avalugg in that it's got low defense and high special defense, while Avalugg has the opposite, making for a more diverse lineup. Good job, Game Freak. Plus, having Confuse Ray helps to spice up the fight a bit. Wulfric will then send out his next Pokemon, Avalugg, at level 59 with Ice Body in the moves Avalanche, Earthquake, Curse, and Gyro Ball. While I like the crunch angle for coverage, I think Earthquake is going to provide a lot more use here, as it's super effective into 3 of the 4 weaknesses that Ice has. Additionally, I really enjoy the synergy here of Curse and Gyro Ball, and if it's able to get set up enough after some healing from that ability, it may be pretty difficult to deal with. And finally, Wulfric will send out his second addition to the team in Weavile at level 57 with Pressure and the moves Night Slash, Icicle Crash, Brick Break, and Ice Shard. With the Hail hopefully still being set up, Weavile should be able to get in a good hit or two before going down thanks to its speed. And there we have it, the final Gym Leaders team reimagined. With the Ice types available to Wulfric in the region, and with just a very frail typing to begin with, it's hard to see why Game Freak decided to make an Ice type the final gym. I tried my best to make Hail an important aspect of the team due to so many Mons being able to capitalize on it. And with Snow Warning no longer lasting forever in this gen, it makes sense to keep them there anyways. And for the item, I'll again be keeping it to the Mega Stone on Abomasnow. And that is how I would fix the 8 gym leaders of the Kalos region. Thank you all for watching all the way to this point, and an extra thank you and bright powder to my channel members. You guys are the best, obviously. And with that, my name is O Creations, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!